Welcome to the EST Hangout.
This is the EST Hangout, and today's guests are...
A very good Monday morning to you. Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by Sentinel Storage. Live right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton Sports, presented by Play Alberta. Thank you to everyone for listening across the Edmonton Sports Talk audio streams at edmontonsportstalk.com. Tune in, iHeartRadio. For those watching on YouTube or listening on podcast, wherever you get your podcast, Matt Iwanyk with you here on this Monday. And joined by two of my favorites for the Hangout. We got Murray McCourt from the VIP Golf Show and the Ranch Golf and Country Club, as well as Steve Sandor of Postmedia, author of many books, but including Leveling the Ice, which we had Steve on a couple months ago when the book was released. But gents, thank you for coming in. Appreciate this. How are you guys doing on this Monday?
No complaints for me. How about you?
I'm doing all right. It's a couple of days off now. This is kind of like my weekend. So there you go. Worked on the weekend. So
thank you for coming in on the weekend.
Well, if you're writing for Postmedia, then weekends are your busy time because there's so much going on all the time, right?
Yeah, it can be. For sure. It's a 7-day-a-week kind of thing. So we all just kind of jump around and do what we got to do. But yeah, so that you never really know what days you're working and what days you're not. And still you're kind of always working because people are calling you and stuff with tips or what have you. So that's just the nature of the job.
Were you at Oilers yesterday?
No, I was. I actually spent some quality time with my family and then watched the playoffs on PVR after I got home. Took the kids stargazing at Elk Island last night, which is spectacular sometimes. Last night was spectacular.
Wow.
You go out to Elk Island on a clear night, and it really does feel like you're on the set of a science fiction movie. And it's just, it's just a great way to spend some time with the family.
Nice.
Wow, that is cool. It's a good idea. I might have to try that sometime.
I was thinking that's a pretty solid spot, I would think.
Yeah.
Was it a nice clear night and all?
It's not just us. There's quite a few people you'll see that are kind of go and pretty respectful about not keeping the lights on and things like that in their vehicles, about stashing it and keeping it as dark as you can so your eyes can adjust. And yeah, it feels like you're one with the universe for a little bit. Or if you're a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fan, that you might be in the total perspective vortex. But there you go.
I actually have never.
That was just above my head.
Yeah,
I've never watched this or read those books.
Usually once every 5 minutes, I use an analogy that goes.
I nerded out this weekend with the girlfriend. We did. They re-released Lord of the Rings in theaters, the whole extended versions. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, went and watched all the Lord of the Rings.
And she's still your girlfriend as of Monday morning?
She's a bigger Lord of the Rings fan than I am.
I was going to say, maybe it was the other way around.
Wow.
Maybe you were forced into it.
Honestly, we went into the fellowship and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try to remember which ones are the extended scenes and which ones aren't. And after, she's the one that was telling me, she's nudging me like, there it is. Like there'd be like a 2-second extended cut scene and she's nudging me. No, she's the bigger fan than me.
That would be like, to me, that would be like telling, some woman that you're in a relationship with the secret that like you really like Rush, and that becomes like the repellent, like that ends the relationship.
That's a good way of
complete
putting it,
opposite.
Nerding out. I like that.
It's full nerding. I mean, it's like I noticed it was same theater we went to, Landmark Cinema downtown. You notice certain people that were there all weekend. Like there's a bunch of us that all just went to watch them all throughout the weekend.
Wow.
And like yesterday's movie was 4.5 hours. I forgot what it works out to be. Yeah, the last movie extended cut is like 4.5 hours.
And this was in the theater?
Yeah.
How many buckets of popcorn did you buy?
We bought on Friday, brought some stuff on Saturday, and then yesterday kind of tailed out. Like it's a lot of snacking.
Yeah, no kidding.
At 4.5 hours, I wonder if the term extended cut should just be extended. I don't know if the word cut should actually be used in that sentence anymore.
It's just the extended version and all that. No, it's just lovely. Great. It's 25 years since The Fellowship came out, so it's been brought back out, and it was great to watch them in theaters again.
Wow. I've spent 0 seconds watching any of those movies. How about you?
Yeah.
I've seen them, but just the original.
The theatrical ones.
Yeah, like I've just learned, like, when you have a favorite band and then they put out the box set with all the B-sides and unreleased stuff, and you're like saying to yourself, there's a reason these songs never made it onto albums. Like this is they're like these half realized, half thought. Or I remember once years ago, I picked up a Jack Kerouac collection of all of his letters and book and stuff that he'd written that never got published. Like they found boxes and boxes of his stuff. And I'm like, probably if he'd come back to life going, what are you doing?
Why are you releasing this?
This is embarrassing. Like I actually think about my own Google Docs and stuff that I don't want anyone seeing that. Like, it's just crazy. Like,
well, that's what happened when Prince passed. It's like he had all these unreleased stuff in the vault. And it's like, well, there's a reason it's in the vault, probably.
Yeah.
There's a reason Prince probably didn't release some of those things. But I'll say this for the Lord of the Rings, the ones that they added in. I don't think there's a scene that's a bad scene that they add. It does add to the story. It's a lot. Like, you're adding 3 books into 3 movies. And I think Peter Jackson did a great job. And like, there's a Christopher Lee scene with Saruman that's not in the original Return of the King, but it's in there, and it's a really great scene. It's like 6 minutes long. It's very important. So their extended is much better. And that does add to it all. Straight up.
I feel like I'm nerding out with you right now, just listening to you talk about it.
I would say give it a try, Murray. But no, it's also it's like 11 and a half, like 11.50 or something. I'm trying to remember what, if you watch the extended versions, all 3, what it works out to be. It's just under 12 hours. So I'm not going to ask you to put that commitment in.
I would not do that.
Do you nerd on, like, do you have a nerding thing of pop culture? Star Wars, Star Trek, anything?
Absolutely not. I'm the opposite of that.
total Trek nerd.
Are you Trek
Oh
nerd?
yeah, like
There's a
like
new
since
one.
I was a kid, yeah.
Paul
But
Giamatti's in it?
like the brain cells that probably were destined to like have a cure for cancer or like to do some great thing are occupied with like what is the Khitomer Accord and like why the whole Dominion War, the whole politics of that, and all of this fictional Star Trek universe. I can probably talk in a geopolitical way about it. I'm bad. It's actually
That's your thing.
Yeah, and I passed it on to my son for a while, and he was bad for a while. He's kind of grown out of it because he realizes he wants to do things like have a life, and But when he was young, I actually wrote for Star Trek's website for a little while.
No way.
And I actually wrote about that sort of thing with him. And actually, at one point, someone from Paramount themselves, one of their staff said, "Your encyclopedic knowledge of Star Trek astounds us." And I'm like, when you're validated by the people who make the show,
it's worth it.
It's like, you go. People used to say Don Iveson in this town, the former mayor, was a Trek nerd.
Oh, yeah?
But I would totally have it out with him one-on-one. Like we'd see like who's got it.
Stephen Colbert is famous for his Lord of the Rings knowledge. From TV. He's famous for knowing Tolkien and everything about Lord of the Rings and all of that. So I don't know. There's something about Lord of the Rings is my little nerding out to a degree. I don't have Star Wars, don't have Star Trek, didn't get into Harry Potter's, but Lord of the Rings was the one that I always was into. So it was a lovely weekend for that. Murray, how was your weekend?
Well, my parents were in town for the weekend, so it was a lot of family time, and Luke had a thing. He goes to church with my wife, and he got his first Eucharist last night, so that was a big deal. So went out for dinner celebrating that, and tried to sneak in a little sports here and there in the middle of that because there was a lot going on, as there usually is every weekend, and some big stuff going on. And a big game for you tonight that I'm excited to see how that plays out as well. So there's lots going on.
Yeah.
Big trade yesterday in hockey, too, that impacts the Oilers in a lot of ways.
Big trade, 4 NFL playoff games, controversy in one of them specifically. Oilers dominate the weekend. Oiler goaltending's going on. What am I missing that happened? 2
playoff games going to overtime.
Yeah.
That's crazy. The NFL had a heyday yesterday with that, or this weekend with 2 overtime games. That's fun.
You won't care about this, but United beat City. Yeah. Arsenal drew Nottingham, so there's that.
It ended up being a great weekend. I was frustrated for Arsenal with the 0-0 at Forest, even though that was a penalty. In my mind, the ball was handled in the penalty area, and Arsenal should have had a penalty. But I'm not gonna go on too much about it because 7 points clear now. That's basically in baseball terms a 3-game lead.
But if there's a team that could possibly.
This is a different team, though. Okay. And I think we all know this is a different group that I just can't, especially with the schedule being now very favorable to Arsenal, the rest of the way that they have.
Hey, as I said for the show, Michael Carrick's Manchester United. You got them this weekend.
We'll see.
The guy's he's beaten Arteta, Pep, I think Klopp, and Drew Tuchel. in his time as a United interim manager from the prior time to this time. So just saying.
Why not just drop the interim tag then? Because he's just not.
You want to know
big enough
something?
name.
Because of how good his first interim time went over the 4 matches or whatever, if he does well enough, I would be all for it with Michael Carrick. I wouldn't have been it for Ole, but I'd do it for Michael Carrick if we see positive results through the rest of the season. So I will say that. This weekend will go a long way for that. City, Arsenal, if he can get through those with even 4 points, it's a good start. You have no idea what's going on.
Are we still talking about Star Trek or what's going on here? But like you were talking about how long the soccer season is almost over. Is that what I'm hearing from?
End of May.
They're about just
May.
a little bit past the halfway point, and they go to end of May.
The thing is, like, Arsenal is up 7 points. So each match is worth 3, draws are worth 1 and stuff.
Not a big lead if it goes till May.
But in soccer, it's different because there's a lot of games that just Arsenal and anyone catch them, they're just going to win. Like it's there is a discrepancy.
Yeah.
So for somebody to catch up 7 points, and to his point that you were making before the show, like one of the teams chasing Arsenal is Aston Villa. They don't play Arsenal anymore, so there's not even another meaning to, in hockey, the 4-point game, the 6-point game in soccer. You don't have that coming up. That it's just it's one of those. Will Arsenal okay, I'll quickly look at their schedule because I don't know if you would know their record off by heart.
Sounds like you probably would know their record.
Yeah, it's 7 up. It's 50 to 43 right now, right? So Villa and City are at 43, and now
So
like, we're
15
talking about the disparity, right? Like, in England, the disparity is not as bad as let's say it is in Spain,
Yes,
or in some of the other leagues, where the difference between the top 2 or 3 teams in the league in terms of talent and depth, the English league is the most competitive because the bottom teams are better. Because the English league is just so rich it's the richest sporting league in the world, right? Like it is the biggest money. It is the most watched sporting league in the world. And it is so big and it's become so much of a monster. And you're seeing it now in Europe and Champions League and stuff. English leagues teams are now starting to just walk through like Spanish teams used to. But the difference still between the bottom teams is so great. Like, what would you say between Arsenal and City if you took their spending, right, and compared it to, let's say, 16 other teams in the league? They probably would outspend 16 other teams combined, right? I'm not going to count Chelsea or United maybe.
No, because they spend high.
But I think
they're supposed to.
But certainly if you took the Nottingham Forests and Wolves and even Villa of the world and you put them in a box, you'd be like, yeah, that's a week to Arsenal and Man City. Mm-hmm. That's like whatever. Like they don't spending £100 million on a player is not to them. It's just like it's Tuesday,
and that's usually gets spent over. Well, actually, no. Here's the thing: £100 million to a player. Like sometimes to get that player, it's also broken in two. One, you have to pay another team to get that player, so you might pay $100 million, and then you got to pay the salary for the player. Yeah. And then so soccer is much. Arsenal this season right now, so it's 22 games. They play 38 in the Premier League. 15 wins, 5 draws, 2 losses. They only have 2 losses. So it's like, hey, you're not expecting a lot of losses the rest of the way.
Yeah, draws can
happen. But then, so the other team also then can't have stumbles themselves.
Right.
And that's why 7 points in soccer is actually, you're getting to a point here where that is a very difficult lead to drop, especially when your schedule is much. If Arsenal still had a bunch of games that you're going, okay, well, they've got to play City and Villa and Liverpool or something, then you could be like, hey, now it's still a tough stretch.
But they're done with Liverpool.
But they're done through some of those, so it's a lot different. So that's why 7 points it's a pretty solid lead at this moment.
Yeah, and I mean the money and how you manage a roster is very, very different because, and I've written about this a bit, like North American sports are very unusual compared to the rest of the world. Like the trading of players and drafting of players is considered a barbaric process. And it is in the rest of the world. It breaks all labor laws. And even in North America it does, but the Sherman Act in the States allows the leagues to sort of exist and do what is a huge violation of labor rights, right? Which is forcing someone to play for someone they don't. So imagine if you were the top kid at Harvard Law School, right? And you were like, I am the best ever student. Like I've done all this volunteer work. They think I'm a genius. And they're like, hey, you have to go work for the worst law firm in America for 3 years, at least 3 years. You're going to go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and work for Better Call Saul. You're gonna, and you're going to work there because it is the worst legal firm, and you have to go there. You have no choice. Imagine being in your job, saying, Matthew,
leaving Nate.
Yeah, but imagine right now. We talked to a sports talk show in Salt Lake City, and we need a night host. They need a morning guy. You're working there as of tomorrow morning. What?
Yeah.
Right? Like
move your family. Uproot your kids from school.
It is strictly this North American phenomenon that we think that this is cool, right? It isn't done. So in the rest of the world, the players have a lot more power. They can determine sort of where they go. Generally, within 6 months of your contract expiring, you're allowed to start negotiating with other teams. You don't have to wait for your free agency. 6 months out from the end of your contract, you're allowed to start talking to other teams.
So, that basically be who's a upcoming free agent this year? Bobrovsky, for instance. Bobrovsky could start talking to other teams as of this moment to figure out where he wants to play next season.
He could actually announce, that say I'm going to be playing for the Oilers next year. Even though he's going to finish the season.
Wow. And it's, you finish your season, you let it happen. And there's a famous one, actually. I don't think it was announced where he was going, but it was done. He was leaving. But Liverpool last year lost a homegrown talent to Real Madrid. But he's played out the rest of the season. Everyone knows he's like, I'm not coming back.
So how does that work in the dressing room? The other players are probably pissed off that he's leaving.
They all understand because
it's the business.
It's the business. They all understand the business.
Because if they're in that spot, they're going to do the exact same thing.
Right.
It's you understand.
Fans get pissed off
that
you're leaving.
In the early, I think it was the 90s, there was a Belgian player, I think Bozeman was his name, who went to court and talked about the contracting of why is that different. And the European courts all ruled in his favor, saying, the contracting in sports can't be different than the contracting in any other business. Wow. And so contracts mean something. If you sign a player for 3 years, you can't get rid of that player unless that player agrees to it. And that player can negotiate. You may have to buy them out. You may have to pay them. In a lot of ways, players receive money or partial money on the transfers. On top of the new contract, they have a lot more rights and a lot more control over where they go. And as well, as a player, you can go to a club and sort of say, I don't want to play here anymore. And you quit your job. You can quit your job.
Di Maria, Man U. Yeah. Years ago, a player signed from, I think, PSG. They signed for 1 year. Family didn't like it. Left after a year, and everyone's pissed. But United fans are pissed. They're like, why'd you sign here? You're taking money, all this, and upset. So he leaves he went to PSG.
Well, look at Isak, right? Leaving Newcastle at the start of the year for Liverpool. He basically announced to the world, I want to play for Liverpool. I'm not playing for Newcastle anymore. After signing a fairly new contract with Newcastle the year before.
And the season has started. And the season, and this is where also soccer is so that you could sign a contract 6 months out of when your contract's going to end. But if you're under contract, there's only 2 windows that you can leave. It's August, basically. There's a little bit of the summer window is a little longer, and then in January. But so for Isak with Liverpool, he's like, I'm not playing for Newcastle this year. I'm only going to Liverpool. Newcastle wants fair money for him, though. They're going to sit there and be like, no, Liverpool, you're paying for this guy. And it came right up to close to the end of the month, where if it had hit September 2, the guy would have been stuck with Newcastle for 4 more months at minimum, and he didn't want to play there. So it's like, what do you do as a team? Do we just accept the money, or do we say, no, you're sitting, you're not playing or whatever, or you're going to, it's your choice. You could either sit for 4 months, you could play for us, but we're not letting you go to Liverpool. So it's a wild business that can happen over there.
Holy.
Yeah, and everyone's upwardly mobile. The problem, I think, with soccer, and I think the huge problem is that everything is about upward mobility. It's about going to play for one of the big clubs. So even if you're a really great player, playing for a team that's building, and you see there were teams in England over the last few years who were building, getting better and better. But even now, you take a look at a team like Crystal Palace. They won the FA Cup last year. Outworldly good year, right? A team that was up and rising, a bunch of young players. Well, their best player went to Arsenal, and their best defender is probably going to Man City, right? Because the idea is to go play for the biggest clubs.
It's the best. There's capitalism and there's socialism. North America socialism in a sense of sporting, where it's parity. We want everyone to be equal.
Right.
Over there, it's capital, and there's a huge disparity. When you start a Premier League season, there's a good 14 teams you could look at and be like, you have no shot at winning.
Right. That's what
you're never going to win.
The best teams or the richest teams are always going to be the best.
Yes.
The best teams, and the other ones I don't know. I like North American style better. That makes more sense.
And we argue about it, and we think, that would work. And honestly, the best year they had in terms of viewership numbers, the year that Leicester shocked everyone and won the league out of nowhere. But at the same time, you look at the super teams and the money that they bring in, and you think to yourself, well, maybe that model is actually the one that drags fans in. But it gets ridiculous. I just saw yesterday they announced shirt sales. And Arsenal shirt sales, like, dwarf. Like again, there's 12 or 13 teams that altogether don't do the shirt sales that Arsenal does.
The top, and this is why, like in a number of years ago, this was during COVID, I believe it was, the top clubs of Europe, 12 of them or 16 of them or whatever, tried creating their own league. They're like, screw this. We'll stay in our leagues, but we're going to build something that's just ours. And because they're like, we're bigger than everyone else. We'll do this. But this is also where I love Europe and the rest of the world is that, like, in the NHL, I'd say the top teams, the Rangers, the Leafs, the Oilers, that we don't want to play with the Columbuses of the world anymore. We're going to do our own thing. We're guaranteed in the playoffs, and you guys fight out who joins us in the playoffs. It kind of could just happen type thing. But in Europe, it was like this Super League was happening, and the fans were like, hell no. We don't want this. And then the players were like, we don't want this either. And it died within 48 hours, which was wonderful to see.
Yeah. It'll get resuscitated in some way.
Because the problem is then Champions League immediately started going to crap after that because they started doing their own thing. And it's just this weird format they have now.
Well, everything's about adding games, right? The new World Cup's got 48 games. And I mean, I look at a lot of the first round of the World Cup and depending on what happens in the next 2 or 3 months around the world, and I do think that could have an impact on the World Cup.
Do you?
Oh, Germany's already talking about pulling out.
I don't think that.
I mean, there's a threat from their politicians.
Yeah, because we went to Qatar, we went to Russia.
I know, but there's a certain bitterness to the United States and you remember Qatar and Russia was basically persecuting its own people at the time, right? And, not quote Eddie Izzard, and Qatar was persecuting its own people at the time. And to quote Eddie Izzard, kill your own people as much as you want. But as soon as you kill someone else, then, we have a problem, right? The United States is now really in Europe's face, right? With the whole Greenland thing, with the tariffs and such. And they are in Europe's face. And Europe's like, you're doing this to us now, right? You're not doing it to your own people, right? I think that there will be some questions. I'm with you. I don't think it stops, but I do think like the whole Trump getting the FIFA Peace Prize. I mean, FIFA's become like, it's distasteful. I was really looking forward to the World Cup a while ago, and I'm feeling now. I mean, sports is always political, and I've always made this argument. It's one of the most political things we do is the following of sport. Sport was born out of politics, and and when people say sport and politics don't mix, I'm like, do you pay attention to the world at all? Like, do you really pay attention? Because it is one of the most political things that we do every day in, day out. But I think this one has become so over the top. It's becoming such a sideshow. Like you, it's almost like everything's become so bloated. The number of games, of needless games that are being played. Leagues are doing this all over the world. It's just too much. At what point is too much too much?
I think FIFA's hitting, just soccer in general is hitting that point because, and this is where this whole conversation starts. You're talking about how long soccer leagues seasons are. So training camp and the summer tours begin early July. So that's preseason basically. That will run till the end of May. And then in World Cup or Euro years, the top players then play, or Copa America, through June. And then what they get is, so like the players that will play at the World Cup, the best players that go long, the clubs usually say take a couple weeks while they're doing their training camps, like go enjoy a vacation and then come see us. Yeah. But like these players, there's no breaks. Yeah. You could play upwards of, with international, you could probably play close to 100 matches this year.
Yeah, there's some players, and this is why, like, there are soccer players who die or nearly die on the pitch. Like Christian Eriksen a couple of years ago, he had the heart attack on the pitch. It's exhaustion. Like, the game is so taxing, and they're asked to play so many games. Soccer is a far riskier sport to play than football, right? Like, when I'm saying American football, in terms of danger to your body, simply because of the number of games they're throwing at players now.
Yeah, and and then this year they added, so it's every 4 years there's a Club World Cup, so certain teams have to play this other competition that no one wants.
Olympics?
They don't play Olympics.
There's no soccer.
It's under 23.
Under 23. Yeah.
And except you could add, if you're a qualified team, you could add 3 overagers, I believe it is.
3 you can bring in if they want to.
Which generally only the host nation does that for the large league.
The women's tournament's a legit tournament.
Yeah. But the men's isn't because they didn't want to mess with the World Cup.
Okay.
And because that's how FIFA, I think, made the deal to
I don't
let
know when the
players
Olympics
go.
made the change, because at one point the Olympics weren't like that. The Olympics were a big deal.
Which is why Uruguay is being get credited for extra World Cups, I believe, recently, is because they won the Olympics.
That's as well, because they were equal back until I think the 70s or 80s. And remember, England didn't even participate in the World Cup until the 50s. They didn't want to be part of the whole. There was, again, politics was involved in a lot of things that this. But yeah, the sport is. I'll be interested to see what happens out of this World Cup. I just think that there's so many early round games. They're going to be played in extremely hot conditions. That you're.
Oh, we're adding water breaks, Steve.
Yeah, we're adding water breaks,
which means we get 3 minutes of commercial inventory added.
Have you guys ever been to Miami in the summer?
No,
I was there for the Stanley Cup final in June, right? And I was I could not, being outside for even an hour, unless it was the evening, was how do you exist in this climate? And I'm not saying this as a Canadian who's not used to it. I'm summer in Miami is punishing. It is, you feel the heat.
To me.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah. No, it's afterwards, it's.
I think running around would be a little different story.
There's California heat and there's Miami heat, right? And that's a totally different animal, right? And it's just heavy. But I just think you're playing soccer in this. You're going to play so many group stage games in this. How do you go through 90 minutes this?
And that's my one concern though with the NHL. Just we're going to 74 games right away, or 84 games right away.
But less exhibition games, so it'll balance it a little bit.
But then it's just we're adding more teams, and then they want to do eventually we're going to get to the. Are we going to? How are we expanding the playoffs in the NHL? Is it going to be the NBA style, where we're going to have the play-in tournament type thing, or are we just going to have more? And it's just more isn't better.
Not necessarily, no.
I understand, and outside of the body part to this, but from a business perspective, I understand the NFL getting up to 18. The CFL's at 18 games. It can be done.
Yeah.
They'll get there, but you don't need more than that. No, but the question is 10 years from now, 20 years from now, is the NFL going to sit there and be can we find a way to get to 20 games?
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about this off the mics, off camera, right before this, that we use the word drought when we say, hey, this team's in a Stanley Cup drought, or this team's in a championship drought. Well, if there's 32 teams in the NHL, technically, if the law of averages is that once every 32 years is your window, and that's good, that you shouldn't use the word drought until your team goes 32 years without a championship, because otherwise it's incorrect. You're basically part of the statistical norm.
So just a rotation in a way.
All things being equal, that's a lot of teams, right? And I'd be the first one to say and I know the owners would be look at you like you have a second head, because a lot of them invest a lot of money, and you'd say, well, at what point do you say expansion is so unwieldy? And I would think it would be because the NBA is the most progressive league of the four, and they're the ones that have tried the cup and tried some different, the weird playoff system, which I don't like at all. But yeah, they've tried this play-in playoff system. I could see the NBA being the first one to say, yeah, we're going to create a second division, and we're going to start doing promotion relegation. That we're going to.
I don't think North America would ever be okay with that.
Because
they couldn't handle it.
Because the franchise fees and the TV money, right? The owners would say, I spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to get in this league. The idea that if I finish
it's not billions now.
If we finish in last place, we leave the league.
Well, then don't suck.
Yeah, well, that's
do a better job.
That's one of the best parts though, of promotion relegation. It's you don't get rewarded for being bad.
You get punished.
You're going to get punished. Wow. So you want to avoid tanking and stuff no, you can't tank anymore. That's one of the best. So to soccer, quick before you jump in. Sorry. One of the best parts at the end of a season is watching a relegation battle to see who's going to not get relegated, because it could be so much fun to see. Okay, well, who's going to stay above it?
But I was going to say in soccer, though, when there's so much disparity in the teams and where the players want to go and where they play, I mean, I don't necessarily think that's fair either, to relegate a team out of there because you're already in the group that sucks because you're not one of those top 5 or 6 teams that are going to attract all the players and have the most money. So,
but what's great is those teams that do come up and they stay up.
Well,
if Sunderland this
They
year
work
having a
hard to
great
do
year.
it, yeah.
And it's wild to see when that happens. Then you're going, oh my God, this team, they're going to stay up. And if you actually go back to the common teams that were, going up, going down probably 10 years ago, a lot of them are now down. Like some of them are from the Premier League are more down. And there's other teams that have now come up and are just staying up and stuff. So it is actually, I get it.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating thing to sit here as North American fans and thinking this way, because the world does it differently. You go to auto racing even. F1 is very Premier League football-esque. There's your top teams. There's the everyone else's type thing. But then IndyCar is much different. It's much more parity. We're going to make it all kind of equal and stuff like that.
This year, F1's going to be excited with them cleaning the slate. Totally new set of rules.
Yeah.
New cars. I think.
But then you'll have the haves and the have-nots and everything like that.
And then you have.
And it's weird how like in soccer, it's like you cheer for different battles. You don't always cheer to go win the title. You cheer for something else. And it's not something us North Americans are used to understanding, because we're used to, no, you go for a title. That's the success of a season. Did you win the championship or not?
Yeah.
And like
it's weird.
In hockey, and like again, if we were, in the same environment that the rest of the world is in, we would look at a city like Toronto and say, yeah, they have 8 NHL teams. They have not 2, they have 8. Right? It would be like, Mississauga would have a team. They would say Scarborough would have a team. They would. And then the teams, you'd be like, which team you cheer for, right? Like, which Toronto team you cheer for? Well, this owner is Catholic, so I cheer for them. This owner is supports the conservative. This money all goes to the NDP that this one team makes. They all talk about it. They are very political. And because I'm a leftist, I support this Toronto team. Like Borussia Dortmund, right, in Germany. Their players, when the miners go on strike with them. They go with them.
Wow.
The German World League is so fascinating, just with the how political fully they get, and
that's why I mean sports and politics mix, and they don't pretend it doesn't mix. Like in North America, we have this whole we pretend that sports and politics don't mix. We pretend that NHL owners don't give a lot of money to the Trump campaign. We pretend that doesn't exist. We pretend that teams don't go to the White House to celebrate. That the Florida Panthers, whose owner is buddies with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump tried to make him the Secretary of Defense, Vinny Viola, isn't buddies with Trump, and the Florida Panthers players all show up wearing the red tie. But sports isn't political. Sports is not political at all, right? It's that thing in North America. We have this whole pretend thing. In Europe, in the rest of the world, South America, wherever, there is no pretend line. They say yes, if you are of this social group, you will probably cheer for this team. You don't just do it because the team colors are interesting or what have you. But my dad played years and years and years and years ago in the 1950s in Hungary. My grandfather, my mother's father, and my dad, as the story goes, did not get along very well. He did not want his daughter, even though he was in the sporting ministry in Hungary and was the chef de mission for the Hungarian Olympic team, did not want his daughter dating an athlete. And so my dad and my mom had a very fractious sort of relationship before the revolution. And my grandfather had ties with Ferencváros, which was the biggest team in Hungary. It's told my dad, you're never going to. My dad came up from the second division and signed for their rival team right before, which is the Jewish team, MTK. He signed with them. And that's also a very loaded thing. But he signed with MTK, and then the revolution happened, so he never played for them. But the fact is that's the kind of heated stuff that would happen. That I would actually say, MTK, they're the Jewish team. Tottenham have Jewish roots. Ajax has Jewish roots, right? Like those teams have those roots, and they absolutely flaunt them. It's a big deal.
The German world too, they're a fascinating story. There's rules of you can't have majority ownership of a team. I believe it is. It's 50 minus 1. Like no one person could own an entire club. The fans have to own a half of it. So then and it's famous, and this back to the political part of this. Like so, Bayern Munich, where Alphonso Davies plays, which is one of the biggest clubs on the planet, they have an annual general meeting where these fans get to address the board. and ask their questions. And there's famous where they stand up and they're upset about a shirt sponsor because they don't want to be sponsored by, can't remember who it was, but they're not happy with the ethics of that company. So they're yelling at the board in this at the Jubilee, basically upset about this jersey deal. And the board has to sit there and answer to them because, well, no single person could just come in and buy 100% of a German club. Like the Edmonton Oilers would have to be owned at least 50% by the city of Edmonton, the people of Edmonton.
That would not work well here.
Yeah, I mean,
but Daryl Cates can't then just own the whole club.
Yeah.
He can't. The fans of the Edmonton Oilers would have to agree to things,
and I think,
on a bigger scale for this club.
Because of that, I think if people went to a professional game in Germany, they would be stunned at a top level sporting event how affordable it is compared to going to. I had friends that have gone to games in the Netherlands and what have you, seeing the biggest games. I had a friend who, like his wife got a job in the Netherlands for a year, and he went to games, and he said, couldn't believe how regularly he could take his son to games because they were affordable. Wow. This is a different animal, right? It is, and it's funny because the clubs have such money coming in, but the TV deals and what have you, there's lots of other revenue streams and the selling of players, which you say, okay, that comes into it. But teams make that a revenue line, especially the smaller teams. That is the way that they survive. The
San Jose Sharks, if this was soccer, would possibly build up Celebrini for a few years and then sell him off to Chicago. Oh my goodness! Because
I'll take that. That's good.
Because that's a lot of money they could get in.
Yeah.
This guy, we've built him up for a few years. We could either keep trying to get him, or he might just go sign somewhere else. We're going to sell him off and make a bunch of cash, and then try to buy a bunch of more younger players to build a team from there.
When Ralph Kruger was at Southampton, right? Our former Oilers coach Ralph Kruger, who's also a soccer executive. I think one of the most interesting men in sports.
He is a fascinating individual.
Yeah, because
speaks at the financial or economic forums.
But when Ralph Kruger left and joined Southampton had some of the best young talent in England. Everyone knew they were up and coming. They sold everyone off to keep the team going and to keep them a going concern. They're no longer in the Premier League because it didn't work, the whole thing. But they sold players like crazy. And because they had this young, they knew they couldn't hold on to that roster. Even if you would say, if you could do this a couple more years, guys, you're going to contend because you had all these young English stars and they were really good at picking them up. And they sold them off, right? I think that was like Theo Walcott and Adam Lallana, all these players went on to play somewhere else.
I'm going to ask you guys another soccer question. I was out for dinner last night, and my in-laws were there, and my father-in-law is from France, so he is a massive soccer guy.
Nice.
He's also a big New England Patriots fan. So I asked him, hey, did you enjoy your Patriots game today and see your team win and go on to the semifinals? He goes, well, I didn't really watch very much of it. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Really?
And he goes, well, there was a soccer game on that I really wanted to watch. And so you guys talking about the Premier League, and this would have nothing to do with it, but he was telling me about a game with Senegal in it yesterday.
Yes. The AFCON final.
Oh, yeah. So Senegal walked off the pitch.
AFCON.
He was telling me about that. Some guy got kicked out of the game, or thought he got kicked out of the game, and he was in the dressing room, and the game was delayed for like 15 minutes while they went to the dressing room and told him, you're not actually kicked out.
Because the whole team went.
Back and play.
The whole team walked off.
Is that what?
So quick, AFCON is... So there's the World Cup, which is the World Cup. Obviously, I don't have to explain that one.
Yeah.
And then there's the Euros, which is the Battle of Europe. There's the Gold Cup, which is the Battle of North America. And then Canada was part of what was called Copa America a couple of years ago, which is for South America. The African nations have their own cup that's ever held. Well, it used to be every 2 years. This is the last one. Now it's going to go to every 4 years. And it's the Battle of the Champion of Africa. So this was the final. Morocco was hosting, looking to win their first title in it. I don't know if ever, or if it's first one in like 50 years or something like that. It was like a really long time. And then Senegal, and this was the final, which was, I missed that. I was reading about it, and it was...
Senegal had a goal ruled out. I actually thought it was the right call. Player shoved another player in the box. I mean, the Moroccan defender went down easily. And so Senegal, and a couple minutes later, Morocco get a penalty, which would have won them the game. But he took the Panenka down the middle, and the goalie didn't even move and just caught it, which is when you try to do it's like an off-speed pitch. You take a penalty, and instead of like hammering it into the corner, which you should do every time, did I say that out loud every time? Hammer it into the corner.
So it's that little, like just a little chip shot. Like not power, Just you run up like you're going to take power, and then you go very soft, and you just lightly hit it.
Yeah, well,
and you hope the goalie's going to dive, and then the ball's just going to roll into the net.
Isn't
but the
it like
goalie
a 50-50?
just...
The goalie is going to dive one way or the other. So if you do that,
But then they went down the middle, and so the goalie didn't move, and the goalie just caught the ball.
And more modern soccer too, and the guess, because a lot of penalty taking is just guesswork by the goalie. They guess one way. They don't have time, so they just guess and they hope they get it right. Yeah. But now more and more goalies are starting to stand their ground because they know that's an option to go down the middle now. And so they are, which never in old school soccer you would have got screamed at.
Here it is. So just right down.
Oh my God.
And that's for a championship.
So you like honestly, I couldn't imagine if I had a championship on the line, if I was another Moroccan player and someone Panenka'd for win, I would literally punch him in the face on the pitch. I would literally, I would not be able to deal with it.
Like how I could relate this to the NBA. Like
to me,
it's almost like in the
granny
NBA.
shot it. It would be granny shot a free throw.
I was going to say that one. If you need a free throw to get the win,
and you go between
and you choose to go. All of a sudden, I'm just going to go through the granny leg, and you go and you miss, and the other team goes down the court, and scores a basket, wins the game. Like that would be the closest thing I'd have. That where it's like, why didn't you just shoot it? Like if you miss on a normal shot, there'd be anger, but it's you went for it.
Years ago, when I was like FC Edmonton's color guy, and there was an FC Edmonton training session, and a player in the training game took a Panenka for a penalty, and it started a brawl on the field between the FC Edmonton players. They took exception.
Really good at it.
It's like the Michigan in hockey, maybe?
Yes, that's actually a good one. Maybe. Instead of passing it to an open guy in front, possibly, or a guy in front to try to take a shot, somebody behind the net is like, oh, I'm going to try Michigan in overtime of the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, wow.
That's a good one.
This is that to me, it was so bizarre. But, soccer has always tended to have a lot of controversy because soccer is the easiest sport in the world probably to fix as a team sport.
Like match fixing.
Yeah, match fixing. And so soccer
although tennis
dealt with a lot
I know
of
tennis has the worst for money in it.
And yes, and a lot of it has to do with AFCON, and yes, a lot of it also has to do with racial prejudice. AFCON tends to get targeted by people watching it, by the way players react, by that. Oh,
it was famous a couple of years ago.
Match fixing. So people even had mentioned about a previous game that his team didn't seem to celebrate a goal like in the way that they should be. That it felt weird, and I'm like, yeah, there's always this doubting eye when really bad things happen in soccer. When you have a bad mistake that happens in the game, people are very suspicious. Match fixing touched even big teams. Juventus was in a match fixing scandal years ago. So, like, this is, I think once we see, and this is going to get worse and worse. We're seeing it in the NBA. We saw like point shaving scandal as gambling has become, and let's face it, this is the way of the future. This is the way sports networks are going to make money. We're going to be in a world where we integrate like Sportsnet, TSN, all we were watching, maybe even here. I understand money talks.
We're presented by Play Alberta.
Right, absolutely. Right? And as the things get mixed, the stakes get so high that match fixing becomes a thing. And it's interesting when you actually read a lot about match fixing. And I'm talking about in all sport, like Declan Hill.
Yes.
He wrote the book The Fix.
Jeff Christel has talked to him a lot on his Crush Performance show.
Yeah.
Fascinating guy.
Yeah, just basically, people think, oh, they're bet on the upset. No, because that gets caught. What you tend to do is match fixes, like you take a smaller team. Let's say Arsenal was playing Wolves, and you would say to the Wolves players, all right, we need you guys to lose by 3. Because no one's going to look if Arsenal beat you 3-0, no one's going to be the wiser, right?
It's expected.
But we need you to lose by 3 because the money line is 3 and up for you, right? And we're putting this, and like the match fixers and the big people, they look at gambling as an investment. They're not looking to make a 10-1 bet. They're looking at those $10 bets you see on those lines where you're like, someone is really favored. They look at that as an investment. So like, I'm going to make 10% of my money back in 2 hours, right? But I'm going to put down a huge bet, like thousands.
I'm going to put down $1 million and I'll win $100,000.
But I made $100,000 in 2 hours, and then I'm going to take 1.1 million and then lay it down on another very high, very low, like big favorite that no one is looking to see. No one's going to detect this. That's why Juventus got involved in a match fixing scandal. It took so long to detect because they always win the Italian league. No one thought that this is a weird thing that Juventus won a couple of games late. That happens to a lot of the big teams. They win games late because the other team is tired because they have the ball the whole game. So it's really interesting how match fixing works, and it's pervasive, and I think it's a lot more pervasive than we'd like to talk about.
But the flip side, where I take the cautionary tale or like the optimistic approach with gambling being so open nowadays. With ESPN's got their own book, and there's DraftKings now and stuff like that. Play Alberta, all these. We're now paying more attention to things. Like when we look at, I think it was Porter who in the NBA got caught. It might have been, no, was it Rozier? Anyway, it was one where it was like such a weird line that the NBA noticed something like, this makes no sense. Like, why is there a heavy bet on this right now? And that's what allowed them to do the investigation. Like, no, we've caught you for something. And the fact that now it's not all hidden. It's not the bookies on the side. It's very open that there's the data they can watch and they can find the anomalies. That we're now going to hear more about it, but that's because we're being able to put a spotlight on it to try to find the people. Yeah, that's the one optimism I hope for it.
One of the things that's interesting, you went into price fixing or gambling fixing or game fixing or whatever after that, because when you showed me that video, that's the first thing my mind went to, is that guy didn't even try to score, and so maybe he was because he thought the goalie was going to die, but it doesn't look like it. So my mind went to, why doing this? Was that fixed? Did that guy not even try to score because he was getting paid something for it to end a certain way? That's where my mind went.
I think it was an AFCON. There was a game where a ref blew the whistle. Like a match in soccer, I think it's 90 minutes. He blew it like 87 minutes. And the team ran on the field like, what are you doing? Like, we still have 3 more minutes. And the ref's like, no. And so then he resumed the play, and then right dead on at 90 minutes, he blew it. He didn't allow any extra time. And it was like this weird thing. Like, why are you trying to end this game before 90 minutes, dude?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you're supposed to play for 90 minutes.
Maybe he had a date. He needed to go get ready for.
So there's a slippery slope in that kind of thing. And soccer, again, because it has nebulous timing rules, right?
Yes.
And that is something that FIFA has talked about, changing the rules of the game, but there's a lot of pushback against that. And I know Arsene Wenger, when he was put on that committee to sort of look at rule changes, I think some of the rule changes would be great. But, when I tell people and they think, oh, you're a soccer purist, and I'm like, not that much of a purist, that I don't think that we should actually have time that's kept by the timekeeper and not by the referee on the field who kind of looks, 3 minutes, we're adding 4 minutes, but it feels like it's 5 now and they're attacking, and I'll let that go. I think that whole thing of going to a 30-minute half with stop time, ball goes out, clock stops, because there is about 60 minutes of action in the game, right? We know that. Yeah. And about 30 minutes was dead time, teams setting up free kicks and such.
Hockey's dead on 60, basketball is 48.
Yeah.
NFL is only like 12 minutes of action. But baseball's around only like 11 minutes of action.
Is that all it is?
Yeah. Well, because you think in NFL it's a 60-minute game, but how much clock just runs off? So the actual play time of snap to whistle is only about 12 to 14 minutes or something of an NFL game.
If you can watch those condensed games where they just take out all the talking between plays, it's crazy how fast you can watch an NFL game. It's nuts.
And hockey's dead on 60. You can't, it's puck drops, clock starts, but when whistle goes, clock stops. So we play a full 60 in hockey. Yeah. You play a full time in the NBA. NFL and Major League Baseball are two of the ones that have actually it's a 3-hour window, but you're not watching that much actual action.
But at least in baseball, there's no clock. It's other than the pitch clock now. But that you can't time waste. You can't do something in the game where soccer, if you know what you're doing, that's just how bad I am. I've even taught my daughter, who's 13 years old, the art of hey, you're up 1-0. When you girls are changing at the end of the game, walk, don't run.
You take your sweet time.
Tie. Oh, your shoe got untied. Oh, talk to the referee. You tie the shoe. This is how you time waste. If you watch, especially, they call it we have a term for it in North America. We call it CONCACAFing, because some of the Central American teams are so good at the gamesmanship that it's crazy. And so, because that's the name of the region that Canada plays in, CONCACAF, we actually made it a verb, right? You get CONCACAFed, where it's the Central American teams are so well versed at how to time waste, to put shenanigans into a game, to make the game kind of a joke.
We've been talking almost an hour about soccer, and I've learned so much about soccer in the last hour as a non-soccer guy.
I don't think you're more intrigued to watching it, though.
I'm not more interested in watching soccer right now because, I mean, some of the things you guys are talking about, it's just like and sure, I'm used to football and hockey and as my favorite sports and the ones I watch, but I mean, what you're talking about, just to me, it makes no sense because I'm used to the other way. But that's ridiculous.
Just imagine, okay, and I'm going to put this in golf terms when I talk about the shenanigans and time wasting and stuff that happens in soccer. Just imagine the British Open. We're at the 18th hole, St. Andrews, one-shot gap. They're in the final group, 2 guys in the one-shot gap. One guy's about to hit a 30-foot putt to see if he can, try to sink it. But the other guy is allowed to harass him as he's putting. The other guy is like talking in his ear going, you're going to miss this. And the crowd is harassing him. And the crowd is allowed to like harass and they don't stay quiet. And they are, was it the TPC where they're kind of known for being rowdy? Look like nothing, right? Like these are English fans, right? And it feels like you're at a soccer game, right? And they're chanting. That would be considered the gamesmanship. That would be, it's just fine.
Or this one guy, if he makes this putt, he's going to win. But I'm going to putt before him, and I'm going to take my sweet time before I putt. So make him think about it.
His line.
I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk in the line, and I'm going to read my line. And until someone finally comes up to me and says, "No, guy, you have to putt now," I'm going to just take as long as I want. I'm going to take 5 minutes here, and that guy who knows he needs to make that putt to win it all is sitting there thinking the entire time because I could just do it, and no one's going to tell me to rush it up a little bit. It's
calling a timeout on a field goal kicker to try to ice him on
that's minor stuff, hey? Like, holy cow. Yeah, that was an interesting weekend for the NFL. Like,
are you a Bills fan?
No,
you're not.
My team was done in the second week of the year when Jaden Daniels went down. Like as soon as he got hurt, it's like And I feel like the Bears are going to be this year's Commanders, but because they did it with mirrors for most of the year.
I thought the exact same thing this morning. I don't know why. I was thinking about Caleb Williams.
Like they had the same kind of year the Commanders did the year before, winning a lot of close games, pulling a lot of games out of the fire. Where you're like statistically, your defense is terrible. Statistically, like you get a lot of breaks in games,
comebacks,
and these things will even out. Yeah. Like, come on, that game-tying touchdown last night, that was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. That was out of a backyard football game. That was a backyard flag football. Try to escape the rush by running backwards, and then off your back foot, just turn around and heave the ball into the end zone. That to me was even more incredible than a Hail Mary hitting off. What he did, And I don't think he meant to do it. I don't think I think he heaved for a corner and hoped that someone was going to be there, and someone was there. But that's not sustainable.
No,
that's not a team that I would say is going to be a good football team for you. They still need a lot of pieces.
I want to see it one more year before I can fully believe.
Coaching there, though, I mean, they got a really good football coach.
Yeah, they do, and they do.
And I'm not convinced. I think that your team, Washington, has a really good. A really, really good defensive coordinator as a head coach who's not really a very good head coach.
I think what their problem is again, you win with mirrors and you start believing that there's a sustainable thing. Like you start believing that, we're a good team year in, year out because we've had everything fell in line for us. Mm-hmm. And especially with the NFL, with the way that teams that didn't make the playoffs get much easier schedules than teams that are generally playoff teams. And then once, like next year, the Bears are going to have a much harder schedule, right? Because they're going to have the
AFC, with where teams finished, the teams that are historically the tough AFC teams are still going to get those quote unquote tougher ones. Yeah. Ravens are still getting the Bills and the Chiefs next year.
Yeah,
like across the board. Like, and it's going to be.
Yeah.
If there's any sort of like leveling off to next year, it's actually beneficial.
To be fair, everyone said, "Oh, the Patriots and Broncos had such easy schedules," but they're playing in the championship game.
Yeah, except the Patriots had to go through, if they want to go to the Super Bowl, the Patriots will have had to go through CJ Stroud and possibly Jared Stidham. As opposed to in a conference that has Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen. And the Patriots might not have to go through any of those.
Could you imagine the Patriots could get to the Super Bowl? And, we talk about quarterbacks, and all this talk now about Josh Allen choking in big games, right? That we're seeing all this stuff.
Lamar part of that too.
Lamar part of that. And these are generationally good quarterbacks. Drake May hasn't played well at all in these playoffs.
No,
but he has not played
defense.
Well, two games.
Two games.
Sorry, apologies. And who's the other game that they beat?
He's turned the ball over. He hasn't looked great.
Justin Herbert.
And yet, because his defense is so good, and I have to, like, props, people talk about Houston's defense, but I got to tell you, like, we talk about how good Houston's defense is, how good Seattle's defense is. But New England, with some of those defensive players, and I think, like a lot of problem in football, we spend a lot of time talking about the offensive stars, but Christian Gonzalez, to me, is a guy you build a franchise around as a secondary player. He is fabulous. And you look at guys like Ellis and how he played for New England the last couple of weeks in the linebacker position, just breaking up plays. They're turning the ball over left, right, and center. And so Drake May doesn't have to be that great, right? And I think that a lot of times we celebrate these quarterbacks, and you have to remind people, hey, Rob Johnson won a Super Bowl, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, right? Like
Rex Grossman went to a Super Bowl.
So it's not always about the elite quarterbacks. And I mean, we probably could talk about, was that a catch or interception until the cows come home?
Wow.
I mean, it all depends on really who you cheer for and your interpretation of the rule, because this is a rule that's being interpreted, right? I hate that it came down to that, because, like, you don't want a game to be decided.
It might have cost Sean McDermott his job, because if they win that game, he might not lose his job. If they move on to next week and they lose even next week, is he getting fired today or in a week from now?
At the same time, I think if Josh Allen protects the football a lot better, then we don't get into this debate.
If he doesn't have that fumble at the end of the first half that gives the Broncos that 3 points for free, it's a different football game. But the catch interception, I'm of so many different minds with that, because one way that it's been worded, and I do agree with, is if you take the defender out of that play, and Brandon Cooks goes down, but he loses the ball, we'd demand that that's an incompletion. We wouldn't be saying that's a fumble. Right. So he didn't complete the catch, which to me leads to an interception. I kind of lean that way. But then there are so many other instances that I've seen.
Was he already down by contact?
No, but that's the thing. Like
the thing.
But that's
it's like which rule takes precedence over the other.
But if you take the defender out of it and he lands and then loses that ball, he's not down by contact because he's not touched. And are we saying it's a fumble or are we saying it's incompletion?
We'll never know that.
But we're saying it's incompletion.
But if he loses the ball, it's an incompletion.
But it's not a fumble.
Right, because the ball's dead after he hits the ground, and that creates that situation. Sure. So should the play have been killed and say the play's dead as soon as Brandon Cook's knee touches the ground, he's got possession, he's down by contact, and then after the possession changes. Does that mean has he made a football move?
Well,
right, and that's the thing.
But did he ever have full control of that ball before he's down?
And that's the problem. There's such a nebulous, such a gray area, and it's the game-changing play, because you're basically arguing which rule takes precedence over the other.
And there's also no consistency, because there's points of the Ravens with the Pittsburgh a number of weeks ago. This would have been just after Thanksgiving, where Aaron Rodgers threw the ball, got batted back. He kind of caught or whatever. And then the Ravens ripped the ball from him. On the field, it was ruled Ravens football. They reviewed him. Like, no, he's down by contact. He's on the ground. And if you look at that play and you compare it to the Cooks play, you'd be like, well, what's the difference here? So if Aaron Rodgers is down by contact and steals the ball, Cooks is down by contact and he has the ball. Or is it the interception? So there's no consistency.
And the
now
other
with
thing,
this.
if you argue simultaneous possession goes to the offensive player.
Yeah.
Right? So it is I think I feel, because in real time, I don't know how a referee sees that, right? Like, I just don't know. They're rolling over at high speed. McMillan's rolling over Cooks, right? You can't tell. All you see is that McMillan says, I have the ball. And you see the ball doesn't look like it hit the ground, which it didn't. So you're like, that's, and I think really your interpretation of the rule depends, A, if you're a Broncos fan, B, if you're a Bills fan, or C, if you have any sort of,
Well, you have a bias. Then there's the fans that have biases. There's ones that don't like the Broncos. There's one that don't like the Bills, and then there's everyone else.
Trust me, right now, if you're a Patriots fan, you think that call was great because you don't have to go face the Bills. You get
Jarrett Stidham.
You get Jarrett Stidham. So we have to go to Denver, but like you're playing the guy who used to be our backup.
You should be
You're not
clear
losing
favorite.
that football game.
Yeah, no, look, like. Look, do you see the line, how it's moved?
Yeah, I want to see what that line is for that game.
It started at 4.5 for the Patriots, but I think we're going to see the greatest road favorite in a conference.
It'll be 7+ by the.
I think it's up to a touchdown already.
Yeah,
like people are like,
so.
the Patriots going to win this game.
But I'm not a fan of neither of those teams. Could care less who won that football game, and I go back and forth on that.
Bills Broncos, that play you're saying?
On that interception or catch. That's the biggest coin flip maybe ever in football. That's crazy.
Yeah, when I hear one argument, I'm like, yeah, no, it was an interception. I hear other arguments, but no, but he's down. And then so it's -4.5 right now for the Patriots in Denver, according to Play Alberta. So we'll see where that goes. The other part, though, then in that game, though, that no one then talks about. Now, there was the PI that could have been called at the end of regulation, but in overtime, there's a hold in the end zone, what looked like a hold in the end zone at the very least, that the Bills should have been charged to safety. Mm-hmm. And then the Broncos win the game right there on a safety, and Bo Nix doesn't get hurt because they don't have to keep playing that. And so there's all these different, I'll say this right off the bat for that game, whether it's Broncos, Bills, I don't care. The reffing in that game was atrocious. That was the problem in that game. Just across the board, the reffing there wasn't great.
The quality of refereeing in the NFL has gone down over the years, and I think a lot of it has to do with the increased use of referees now know that replay is there for them as a crutch, right? They know that they can make mistakes. They can. And I just find the quality of refereeing is not the same as it was a decade ago. Maybe it's just me being an old guy and saying, because I understand this is what we do as we get older. Oh, it was so much better in the old days, right? But I find the quality of refereeing is not what it was. I think, the consistency is a problem. And I think, how many Chiefs memes did we see through the years about the Chiefs getting ridiculous calls late in games or not getting called for things late in game? I mean, the Houston
Patriots too.
The Houston one a couple of years ago.
Used to get calls.
The Houston one a couple of years ago, but the roughing the passers on Mahomes were ridiculous, right? Like, when even the commentators were saying this is out of control. Like, they're not touching him. Like, this is that means so. It's such a subjective thing, right? There's that adage that says that, if you really wanted to be stickler about the rule book, there's holding on every play in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely,
right? There is holding on every play in the NFL. And so you create a sliding scale of like, well, how bad is bad, right? How much are you going to call? I saw that hold in the end zone. I was like, that sort of does that fall into that level of, that's the stuff we never call? It's like traveling in the NBA, right? Could you imagine if they called traveling in the NBA regularly in the NBA or called like
games would never end.
If they called it by the rules, James Harden would turn over the ball 15 times a game because he scoops the ball when he dribbles all the time. It drives me nuts. Stuff that when I coach my kids basketball, I'd be like, you guys can't do this. You can't do, and they would say, I see guys on TV do this. And I'm like, and if you're not watching on video, I'm doing the thing where you scoop the ball with your hands.
Underneath and turning it over.
Which a lot of NBA players do, which is against the rules, right? You can't do that. It's carrying the ball. But outside of international basketball, it's not called, right? Even college hoops, they don't call it. But the amount of traveling and stuff that you see in the NBA, it never gets called, where they ignore those parts of the rule book because it takes away the whole video game. I'm taking 4 steps before I dunk. It's a Euro step. Okay, he's allowed 2. Like, that's like 4. I don't care what foot he's stepping with. That's 4. And like, that's a travel. You can't carry the ball that long. So that's just, rule books are consistently interpreted, and it's crazy.
I'm not going to go fully into it here, but I view the rule book, and I believe the Cale Makar play was correctly called a number of years ago, Oilers and the Avs. Obviously, a lot of Oiler fans would disagree with that and say it's completely wrong. I know Tommy disagrees with that. You're right, and that's, back to that one, I think the league needed to rewrite that rule immediately to make it more black and white and a little more less subjective. Like, this is how it is. And for replays, I think they need to go to, I don't think you should watch it at full speed, but it can't be at frame by frame. Yeah. There's got to be like 0.75 speed. Refs have to watch replays. We do replays at that. And if you can't notice something where that's how you make your determination. We can't break it down frame by frame, because then we can get into situations where we're talking about this one play and people have arguments on both sides that seem accurate.
Yeah, frame by frame or full speed, it's still a toss-up with this one. It's like that. But that has to happen more than just this in sports. I mean, where the call is so close and how you can interpret it. Like, I don't know. Like, it's a game-altering play for sure.
Season-altering.
But what was the right call? Like, to your point though, when you said if the defender wasn't there and he dropped the ball, it'd be incomplete. But we'll never know. if he would have.
Right, but my point on that
But
is,
I think I would
if
argue
he-
if the defender wasn't there, I think he would have completed the catch. Because
Right.
He had control and he was laying down, right?
Yeah.
So like the ball was on him like
him,
this.
yeah, exactly.
So he wasn't going to lose the ball. Like the ball never hit the ground.
But just the point is, if he hits the ground and then that ball pops out, what would we rule that? Is it an incompletion or is it a fumble? If it's an incompletion, then it's an interception to me because he then didn't have possession of the football.
if it's a catch.
The ball didn't hit the ground. So who ultimately gained possession of the football? It would have been the defender.
If, it's
If
a
we would have
catch.
ruled it a fumble, then he's down by contact.
Right.
Because then you add the defender into the play. He then would have been down by contact. So that's kind of like, when do you believe he had full possession of that, or did he? And that's why I actually do kind of agree with the interception part of it, is that I think if you take the defender out of this, Cooks gets that ball, hits the ground with where he is, then all of a sudden that ball pops out.
But you'll never.
We
know
would have.
that.
I know, but
So it's a catch.
But I'm saying-
I don't
But
know,
we would
that's so
have.
interesting.
But it's a hypothetical. Where it's not in
Yeah.
that. Like,
And
what
I
would
know.
we would have ruled that? How would the refs rule that? Are we sitting there saying that Brandon Cooks fumbled the football? Or are we saying it was an incompletion?
Right.
And that ultimately then decides the next
Well,
part of
he
this.
can't have fumbled it because he was on the ground, right?
Right.
Because if let's say Brandon Cooks was running back and was on the ground and McMillan
he's
would
not
rip the ball.
touched.
Yeah, but
prior. No. But we have to take the defender out of this for a second.
But McMillan was touching. He was on top of him.
I know, but
they,
I'm
they were in
saying
full body contact the whole
if we
time.
take him out of this,
Right.
I'm just ruling possession here.
Yeah.
Did he have possession of that football? Is there a moment we can sit there and
Yeah.
say he
Yeah,
actually
no, and
had
I
full
get it. This
possession?
is-
and
and
that's
again-
where it's like, if the ball had then popped out,
And you know what?
we would have ruled it
could-
probably incomplete.
We could probably talk about this for hours. I hope the listeners are chiming in if it was a catch or not. But like, it's one of those things that I think you could make an argument either way
Yes.
and feel like you're totally right.
Yes.
And that the other person, when they hear your argument, would go like, "Yeah, I see where you're coming from here." Because, and that's what sucks, is that a game, and like you're saying, not just a game, but careers,
Yeah, coach's job.
jobs are decided by really a call that is in such a gray area. And I think the NFL itself would argue this is such a gray area that it just feels, and I think what piles onto it is that the Bills get called for 2 big pass interferences right after, right?
Yes.
And so the grievances just go up and the whole conspiracy theory, and let's face it, Buffalo, they have a special level of feeling aggrieved from their history, feeling that the league never wants Buffalo to ever really succeed because they're such a small market, they're such a small team, that feeling that the world is against them at all times. I think if that happens to, let's say, the Dallas Cowboys, well, if it happened to Dallas Cowboys, 90% of the world would go, but like it's...
But it happened. Des Bryant catch.
Des Bryant catch. That
Which
was
wasn't a catch. I sat on, when I watched that in real time and went in Green Bay, I go, that's not a catch. I said that's coming back. I was watching with a friend, I go, that's coming back.
You don't like that.
It was a catch.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
Cowboys
it's-
fan. But it's happened to the Cowboys
Yeah.
where there's controversy. Like, but
mean,
for
was
the
it-
NFL, I don't think the NFL today could come out and be confident either way whether it's happened. But for them, they don't care.
And it was Pittsburgh against
They get the
it was
attention. They get
Pittsburgh
more
against-
conversation.
It was
That's what
Pittsburgh
NFL
against
cares
New
about.
England in the playoffs years ago too, where there's another one of those didn't complete the catch, right? The touchdown catch that ended up changing. the
Possibly
game.
there was a few.
Yeah.
Because it's the Des Bryant was the one that set it off. Where we then went to a point where we're like, what is a catch again?
Yeah, and
we're
then-
trying to
and
figure out
to complete
what
the action of the
defines
catch.
a
They said
catch.
you have to complete the catch. You're like, well, you actually have to complete it while you're out of bounds, even though you're out of the field of play, you still have to complete the catch. And this is where people are still like, oh, I think that's where the whole problem starts. And this actually now begat the problem from this game.
Yep.
The Bills game is what is completing the process of a catch.
Which is weird too, because like at the same time, if Brandon Cooks was closer to the end zone and he kind of had that, and if he touches the pylon, he could then lose the football and it's a touchdown. As long as when he first hits the pylon, the ball's not coming out of his hands, then the play's dead. But when you hit the ground, it's not like there's just so many different gray areas and stuff for this.
Yeah.
But in the end, I will say this: in the Bills, from their level though, is you can't have that many turnovers.
I agree.
There was other points in this game.
Yeah,
Yes, you would have still won. You could have overcome all those turnovers if the refs maybe call it a different way or
Allen
the right
threw a
or
really
not.
bad pick
But-
on a drive that going towards the end zone, and then Allen threw a really bad pick. Not CJ Stroud bad in terms of picks, but like that was this epic kind of.
And then that fumble was just
Yeah.
poor, and Like Sean McDermott after the game was just so furious about the call. He ended up on the plane calling a team reporter, a Buffalo reporter, to bitch more about the call. And it's like, well, dude, you take a little responsibility as a team as well for the fact that you guys
in that position
blew it,
also,
in this game.
Like, let's face it, you made some personnel decisions at the start of the year, the Bills.
Yes. Well, that's not coach. That's on the GM who's staying.
But it's still like,
enough.
it's like you surrounded an elite quarterback with a not very elite, arguably the worst receiving core in the NFL. Arguably, where your tight ends are clearly better than your wide receivers.
Well, Coleman had the big drop in the end zone.
Yeah,
has the ball in his hands and it just drops it and stuff. And how's this game play out if he catches that and scores a touchdown?
The Bills and I understand some injuries played into this, but the Bills, who a couple of years ago had an elite defense, has a defense that doesn't scare anyone anymore. Their secondary has moments, but they're not beating it. And let's face it, Denver's not an elite offense.
No,
Denver wins it with their sacks, their defensive pressure. And there were times that Bo Nix and them cut through them fairly easily.
Yeah.
And so you have to take some responsibility. The Bills were never as good. They're not a complete football team. Like, let's say the Bills, by some miracle, would have won the AFC. Could you imagine them playing Seattle? It would be, I think, like the San Francisco game. It would be like 44-6 or what have you. They are not a complete football team. I think
Josh Allen has masked a lot with that organization.
Yeah, he has
He's
masked
masking
a lot. And so I think it's a different argument than the Lamar Jackson argument, where that Baltimore team for years was pretty darn good around him. You surrounded him with a lot of really, like, you went out and got Henry to be his running back. It's now that defense has gotten old and they're showing it, but for years he had an elite defense on the other side. That I think he takes more responsibility for. But when you look at certain teams and you see, like, this is what we surrounded you with, this is what it is. And I mean, we'll see what happens to the Rams in Seattle. I think the Rams, I actually think I think it's better for the NFC Championship. I don't think Chicago would have given Seattle much of a game because I just think that they wouldn't match up very well.
The Rams had that huge lead against the Seahawks a number of weeks ago on Thursday night, I believe it was.
Interdivision games are always crapshoots a little bit. I mean, you got to think that Seattle's going to take care of business, but you know, when you're playing a divisional game,
I'm kind of thinking a Seattle New England Super Bowl could finish 6-3. like with those two defenses going.
It'd be. I'll say this. I think the NFL. The boys had this question on the morning show earlier today, which is, what would the NFL want for Super Bowl? And I think it's Patriots, Rams, markets, and also it's the two favorites for MVP going at it.
Yeah.
Like the MVPs is right now, like probably, I'm guessing, maybe leading Stafford's way over Drake Mays. But if you're going to go a year where you're not getting a Patrick Mahomes in there, Josh Allen didn't find a way to get there, Lamar Jackson didn't get there, Joe Burrow's not there, I think having the two MVPs is a nice little consolation prize for the NFL.
Did you guys notice in the fourth quarter and overtime how much Nakua was coming off the field? Like, not playing? Like, even in downs that would be downs where you think he's an everyday, because he's a great blocker too. And like, I saw when he got up a few times, he looked like he was wincing and stuff.
Well, wasn't he banged up late in the season?
It just felt like he's not 100. And I'm not, it's hard for me to speculate here, but he came out of a lot of plays late in that game. And I think that could be a factor. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be a factor, but I mean, that's a really banged up San Francisco team that was finally going to give up the ghost, that finally couldn't take the body blows that they'd taken all year long. And so they were, I don't think it's a reflection. Like, Seattle's defense is that dominant and they are that good. We saw some very elite defenses this year. This was
a year of defense over offense.
Yeah, and three of them are still in. Three of them are still in the, like, with Houston. With Denver, New England,
and Seattle.
Those are three teams that you actually look, their defense might be doing more of the scoring in a Super Bowl than their offense will be.
There's not many players in the NFL at this stage of the year that aren't nicked up, though. I mean, that's, you don't go through the wars of an NFL season and be there at this stage of the year and be fully healthy. It just doesn't happen. So, I mean, Puka Nacua is just in the same boat as everyone else. He might be a little more nicked up than some guys, but I have a question for you guys. When you look at Buffalo firing their coach, your team fired their coach. Pittsburgh is going to have a new coach. After those three coaches have been the head coaches of their team for a lot of years. They're really good football coaches, and those three teams, are they really going to replace these head coaches with a better coach that can take them to the over the hump to get a Super Bowl when these three really, really, really good coaches weren't able to do it?
I'm not a big Sean McDermott fan. I think he's a really good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. And the one thing John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin did, at least very early in the career, which allowed them, I think, to stay a lot longer, is they got a Super Bowl. They did get there, and they won the Super Bowl. They got it done. So they always had that to their resume. Early on, they got that and went, we at least won a Super Bowl. And I think there's a stat that says if you don't win a Super Bowl in the first 5 years with a team, you're not going to win.
Okay. The thing about though is that Tomlin, you understand, the Steelers have a very different philosophy. This comes up from Art Rooney. They don't fire coaches.
No. It's been three for a long time, since the late 60s with Chuck Noll.
Yeah, and they don't fire coach. They don't believe in blaming a coach for what are player problems. And they let players know. And it changes the culture of a club. And I think you can argue because the Steelers, while you say, the last couple of years they've been mediocre, they still always make the playoffs.
And for me, with the Steelers, is what quarterback have they had?
We're not blaming
exactly.
We're not blaming the coach for the fault of the players.
Which is Buffalo surprise is an interesting one to me though, because I'm not the biggest Sean McDermott fan, but I also can't sit there and say this is all on Sean. This is on he doesn't have receivers. The defense has gotten worse. That's not him. That's on the GM, and they're keeping Bean. So that part is fascinating to me. That's like, okay, we're giving the GM the coaching change, but I do think they could, like, honestly, what they should have done is if they actually, the fact that they beat Jacksonville might have hurt them because maybe they could have went and got John Harbaugh.
Right. Well,
they could, and that was the thing going into that weekend was, what if Buffalo loses? Could they go and try to go get a John Harbaugh? That's the type of coach they probably should have gone. I don't know who that next coach is that is better than Sean McDermott.
They're already saying Brian Doble, who was their OC for a lot of years, and Josh Allen loves him, but he was a head coach, and he was not a good head coach.
Maybe Joe Brady, who's their OC, who's a candidate for head coaching opportunities. I don't know. I think they have, to me, at least I'll compare my team, the Ravens, with the Bills. I think the Bills have a better chance of finding a better coach than what they had than the Ravens do. I think 3 years from now, we're more likely talking about how the Bills found a better coach and are still doing well over the Ravens.
But the thing is, the Bills
I don't know.
The Bills for a good half decade had the free card of being in the AFC East, right? With a New England team that was in full rebuild and a Jets team that will they're the Jets. And the Dolphins, who are the Dolphins, right? Yep. Like, you have two inept franchises, and you have a franchise that had to basically start over. New England is now good.
It's fast. They might get to a Super Bowl again before Buffalo got to one. They had their whole rebuild and might go back to a Super Bowl, while the Bills with Josh Allen could never get there.
Everyone understands that once New England is good, they are going to keep attracting players, and they're going to be bringing people. And New England is going to just get better and better. And they are the Steelers
in that they are very. Robert Kraft has a great organization that he runs there. He's very loyal. And they allow you to get, and so now Mike Vrabel's going to be the new Bill Belichick in the sense that he's probably going to be there for 15 years.
If you look at their roster, and their defense is really good, but if you look at their roster, the talent level on their roster, it's not like they're littered with first-round draft picks. Like, Vrabel is a really coach. They got some guys that are playing that were later draft picks. But if talent for talent, their defense is not on paper a great defense. They are great. They're very well coached, and Vrabel to me is why they're where they are.
They disguise really well. The other thing though and I think you'll see this as a habit of teams that do well or create long runs in the NFL, is how will they do in the lower rounds of the draft, right? And I think we saw that New England, they were the top 5 team in rookie plays, rookie minutes on the field this year, and yet they are where they're at. And those aren't, you're right, they're not glamour draft picks, but they found some gems in the 6th, 7th round, guys who are starting and who are really contributing to that team. And you take a look at some of the players that they brought in, like some 1-year free agents or things like that, guys who are just looking to restart their careers. It's worked for them. But for New England, everyone kind of knows for them that's a transition, because as they become, and people will be like, yeah, I want to play with Drake May. Yeah, I want to play for Mike Vrabel. And you're going to see, wow, this guy's gone to New England. This guy's gone to New England. It's no different than when Tom Brady was there. It's like, oh, they got Randy Moss. Oh, they went and got
Wes
this
Welker.
Yeah.
The difference, and also is you still have the Jets and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
That's a nice, easy 4 games to know on your schedule that, okay, we've got in our division, okay, we've got the Bills still. They're going to be good still. But we got these other 4 games, which helps us get, okay, we need 6 more wins for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's you're right. Like that is, they're free spaces on the bingo card. It's like in the AFC. Well, you got the Raiders. They can't do anything. You know, it's funny, and I'm of a certain age, right? When I grew up watching football, the idea was already that you knew, and it was fewer teams made the playoffs, but Dolphins, Raiders, Steelers were always going to be the AFC playoffs. They're going to be the top 3 seeds, right? It was given that everyone else was fighting for the other spots, but it was Dolphins, Raiders, and Steelers assured that they're going, and likely 2 of those teams are going to play off for the AFC Championship. The idea of any of those teams ever being even mediocre, let alone bad, like to me, like it's still an adjustment that the Dolphins are bad. In my head, it's still the Raiders are easy because they've moved around so much. They're not the Raiders. Like they don't have that swagger. Yeah. They don't have the black hole. They don't have the. It doesn't feel like they're a tourist team. Like you watch games in Vegas,
the traveling team.
Everyone else is, because everyone goes to Vegas to watch their team play. No one's cheering for the Raiders. Like I wonder how that's going to be like for the A's when they play there. Like. It's a transient city,
and at the same time, Vegas they like the Golden Knights because it's their team. Mm-hmm. Vegas got a team that's theirs; it's organic. These other teams, they're just transplant teams, so they don't have that rooted foundation within the city of Vegas that the fans are like, well, no, we're not going to let you take over our barn. This is our home team. And so but it's like the Coyotes were a place that people in the NHL, you mark down the Coyotes as a place to go watch the Oilers play because it's a great spot, nice weather, I'll go cheer for the team. That's what Vegas and the Raiders are with this. But to that point of the teams, like there was in the 2000s, it was Pats, Steelers, Colts were the top teams in the AFC. Last few years it was Chiefs, Bills, Ravens. Like what's that next cycle that we're going into?
Yeah,
here?
I think Broncos, like all being said, with that defensive unit that they have. The Broncos, I think, are set for the next few years to be at the top team in the West.
They're going to lose coaches, though. Their DC's probably going to get a head coaching job. Their
that's true.
Passing game coordinator looks like he's going to get a DC job somewhere else. So when you lose your coaches,
that's a big. The Ravens lost Mike McDonald, head coach of the Seahawks, a couple of years ago. He was their DC. It was so late. The Ravens were so close to not losing a coordinator that year, and I was like, thank God. And then late, the Seahawks hired him, and I was pissed because I'm like, this is a loss.
Yeah. Another thing, when you talk about the Jets, they draft number 2 overall this year. Everyone knows Mendoza's going number 1. Do you think Oregon's quarterback decided to stay in college football for one more year because he knew he was going to get drafted by the Jets, and he's like, hell no.
This gets back to the whole point of drafts being like unconstitutional and a labor violation. Yeah. Because why?
Because the Jets will not get it right.
Oh no,
they will screw it up. If they look at who's in the NFC Championship game. It was a quarterback there, Sam Darnold. He's sitting there in an NFC Championship game because they don't develop the guys.
Right. Well, he was going to get drafted number 2 overall. Yeah. Now the Jets are scrambling like, oh, shit, now we don't have a quarterback.
And that's where NCAA is like, now that you could go make good money in the NCAA. You can say, you want to know something? I'll wait another year and I'm going to go make $6 million, whatever it is this year. Yeah. Sweet. I'm not missing out on the money.
Yeah,
I'm making
$6 million to not play for the Jets. Perfect.
Yeah, it's like, that's just... But then you're thinking they're going to be bad again next year. You're still going to be drafting way high. Like,
but could somebody else maybe be worse?
Like
could there be a team that's just worse?
At least I played the Dolphins. Like it's just the Raiders. Like where are you going to go? And it's again, I don't know. It's just so weird. Like you look at that. The NFC. I think. You talk about the AFC having those triplets, right? Of the 3 dominant.
Yep.
The NFC is much more static.
Yep.
Like where San Francisco's kind of almost always good, right? Like it's like
Green Bay
pretty well. Some teams are kind of almost always. Dallas used to be that, right? Until this generation. Dallas used to be that.
So the last 2 years, 3, 4, and 5 years ago, they won 12 games. So
Yeah,
they
I
were
think-
pretty good.
It's.
But I
you're
feel
right.
like if I open up the winners of the AFC NFC the last, let's say, 20 years, there'd be a lot more repeats in the AFC than the NFC. That's just it's a gut. Like I don't know what it exactly would be, but there's a lot more.
Patriots and Chiefs were so dominant.
Took so much. Yeah. Ravens would have been there a couple of times, and then with the NFC, you've had the Giants, you've had the Eagles, you've had, if we're going 20 years and stuff, maybe Packers would have still been in there. You've had the Seahawks, like there's the Rams, the 49ers. That there's just a lot more rotation and parity, maybe more so in the NFC than the AFC.
There was an entire generation, like in the late 80s into the 90s, where the NFC Championship game was the real Super Bowl. Remember, it was like, oh, the 49ers are playing the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Or the Giants are playing the 49ers. And whoever wins this game is going to annihilate whoever wins the AFC. And it's going to be like, yeah, the Chargers are playing the 49ers, and it's a 40-point spread. Oh, like the Patriots are playing the Packers, and it's a 40-point spread. Like, you remember the Bears playing like the Patriots and just walking over them, right? It's like, the real challenge was winning the NFC. Like it was like having to go through San Francisco or Dallas or back in the day, Washington and the Giants, right? Like it was like those 4 teams were like all like, we're the best teams in the NFL. And there was no one on the other side. And they would just walk. Remember those Super Bowls were all blowouts. And it was like hard to watch.
Well, Buffalo Bills, go back to them 3 years in a row. They make it 4 years in a row. They were there 4 in a row. That's crazy.
But one of them for sure was a kick.
Yeah, the first one.
Two of them
the first one they lost was close to the Giants when it was the Norwood field goal.
Yeah.
And then they got annihilated in the next 3. Washington annihilated them and Dallas annihilated them twice. Right? It was like not close.
Look how happy you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Want to say that again? Dallas
annihilated them
twice in a row. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, that was.
I'll say that just to the Bills. That's one of those losses that they will be a team for me to watch next year because that could ruin a franchise to a degree. The way that they lost.
Yeah.
Those are ones that could really fester within an organization.
Yeah, people are going to talk. It's going to be.
I hope not because they're fun.
It'll have the something. It'll have that name to it, right? Like I don't know what they're going to call it, but the call, whatever. But people are going to refer to you. Where were you when the pick was made? But you're right. There was a bunch of other picks or other turnovers that the Bills made in that game that weren't controversial at all. Like they were, like the Allen one where he's not securing the football. Like you said, gave him 3 points. There's no. Also, what are you doing?
Yep.
What are you doing running plays with like 20 seconds left on the clock? You're deep in your own territory. What are you doing?
If you're trying to get into field goal range, great. But the number one job you have to have there is ball protection, no matter what.
It's a one-score game.
Whether you're running the ball or throwing the ball, it's all about ball protection.
It's a one-score game at halftime. This is not a problem. But you made it a 2-score game really quickly by bad decision to run these plays and then not protecting the football. So there is a failure on many levels in that thing. And you're right. The Bills have to look back, and Bills fans may look back more critically and say there was a lot of stuff in that game that happened where we made poor decisions.
10 coaching changes in the NFL, most since 22. And I believe in 22, 8 of those guys are already gone.
Wow.
So, but 10 coaching changes. We've already got 2 filled because Harbaugh's to the Giants and Stefanski's to Atlanta. So now we'll see how the other 8 get filled out. Speaking of blowouts and big games, Miami Hurricanes, Indiana Hoosiers tonight, national championship. 7.5 point spread for Indiana in this one.
That team seems conservative, like as a spread.
You think it's going to be a big blowout?
I think
I think people are underestimating the offensive and defensive lines of the Miami Hurricanes. I don't think Indiana has gone up against as strong of lines as the Hurricanes have. And that is where games are won or lost.
They blew out Oregon, but who did Oregon play all year long? They're the number of top 20 teams that they played versus compared to all the other teams that were in the playoff they had the easiest, softest schedule. So when they played a really good team, the result was they got slaughtered. So they're playing a good team now.
Miami beat Ohio State by a bigger point spread differential than Indiana beat Ohio State. But I'm also very worried that tonight after the first quarter, it's going to be a 21-0 game for Indiana. And I'd be like, crap.
I think Indiana will win, but I think it'll be a game.
I hope so. I hope it's at least very much a game. But yeah, I'll be nervous later today.
Yes, you should be.
I'm starting to get there. 5:50, I think, officially will be kickoff.
You can't have crazy high expectations, though. Because you're a big underdog.
It's also, this has been a magical run that I didn't expect. Like, I thought
talented players there.
Yeah, they could have lost at any other thread. The fact that they made the playoffs, I was just thrilled. We're in the playoffs. It's been a long time for the Miami Hurricanes to get to the playoffs. I've been waiting for this for 23 years since the last national championship and stuff. But there's also a point to me that goes, I want to get this done, though. Like, I don't know if Miami, like, they're going to get the Duke quarterback. It's going to cost them like $6 million to get him. But they've somehow snagged him. So next year, maybe they'll be back to being good still. But I don't know. This has been a fun season. It's been a magical season. And I kind of want to just end things off. Plus, if the Hoosiers win today, everyone's going to talk about them as the greatest college team ever. The 2001 Miami Hurricanes had like 17 first-round picks or something like that.
But we were talking about that a little bit earlier before we got on air. Indiana has average age of their team is older than some of the young NFL teams. They're a bunch of 25-year-olds playing against 19 and 20-year-olds. It's not really that fair.
Yeah, Carson Beck's it's just 23. The other guys are older.
Yeah.
But it's also like it's January 19th and we're still playing college football.
Yeah.
And next year it's into the Jan 20-something is the national championship game.
Yeah, and then
it's way too late.
What do you mean, like having the Stanley Cup in late June?
That's the problem. Back to our earlier conversation today of these longer seasons. It's just like ridiculous. I don't want the Stanley Cup awarded in late June.
It's hilarious. Like when we're watching the second round of the playoffs, and they say, "Oh, in this date in NHL history, the Oilers won the cup." Because
yes, please.
It's like, oh, that was in May, like mid-May. It's the length that in the number of games being added, and you think it's too much of a good thing, and at the same time, players they're breaking down, and we talk about injuries and what have you. It's
the list of NFL injuries this year of significant injuries that have come to significant players is really long.
Well, I think too, like the NFL, the game has got so much faster. Guys are hitting each other with violence that. Like we talk about how dirty the game was in the 70s. They didn't have like the same standards for personal fouls and you could hit guys out of bounds. And yeah, that stuff existed, but guys are just bigger and faster now. Mm-hmm. And the game has got to the point where guys are hitting each other with such violence. I had read, and I'm careful about saying this because I actually can't remember where I read it. I'm not the kind of person that likes to throw it out there where it's like, I can't remember the exact source, but there was when I was in the course of researching some other book, my book, but it came across a football stat that it's like being an NFL player is like being in multiple car crashes over the course of a year. That's the violence that's done to your body.
Yeah, Jeff Kurchel's talked about that.
Like it is an unforgiving, brutal game, and what it tells me, what being a giant football fan tells me, is that if I lived in 200 AD. I would have gone to the Gladiators every freaking week and I would have watched it and I would have been like the first person cheering for people being thrown to the lions because football is a barbaric sport. It does treat people, they make a lot of money, but we have lots of issues with concussions and the stress of what's done to players' bodies after they play this game. It's a brutal, terrible sport. And I know that because I love football so much, I know that I have that gene in me that if I had lived in 200 AD, I would have been like, Senator Matthew, what are you doing today? Let's go watch the games. Yeah, let's go watch some people be thrown to the lions. Let's go watch some gladiators kill each other. And I would have been like, yep, that's me because my entertainment is more important than kind of what's right. And I think that's the thing to say, that we still have this mentality in the modern day. It's just that, we're maybe not as obvious about it.
Maybe you'd be one of the gladiators out there fighting.
I wouldn't have lasted very long, I tell you that. It'd have been like, just make it quick, guys. I would just been like, can you make it quick? Can you make it clean? I don't suffer too much.
For some reason, our audio stream, things are YouTube. I don't know if it's YouTube, but it's clicking in and out. I have no idea what's going on here. Oh, there we go. I think this is back. The audio stream should be back.
in the house.
I don't know if it's audio stream or YouTube.
See, you just look at it and it gets fixed.
Well, I gotta check. That's because the YouTube part is.
Yeah, the YouTube's buffer.
Well, I have no idea why the YouTube would buffer, which is causing the other issues. Because our internet's just fine. Here, Trev, can you go hit enter, please? Sorry for this. This is the EST Hangout, by the way, presented by Sentinel Storage, Canada Storage experts, more than 2 decades helping Canadians through life transition. Canadian storage provider. Yeah, just like click refresh and stuff. I can't see the refresh button there. There we go. Or is this going to be back? Or do we have a... I don't see a wheel on this one.
No wheel.
Okay, so hopefully this one goes a little bit better because our stream is going just fine. So I have no idea what's going on there.
Do you want me to?
Well, should be back. Oh, don't touch anything there, Trev. There we go. Yeah, no, we should be all good to go right now.
Okay.
Hopefully things are a little bit better. Apologies in on that. I don't know why our YouTube started buffering on our end, which caused the stream to be buffering and all of that. So I don't know if there's issues down at YouTube because our stream is going perfect. I've got green bars. My levels are moving on my program, so I have no idea what happened there. So again, we should be back. Apologies to that. Yeah, I've got the full stream right now going. This is the EST Hangout. Portions of this hour brought to you by the Hive Product Marketing, official merch partner of Edmonton Sports Stock, promotional products that bring the buzz. Check them out, thehiveproductmarketing.com. We got Steve Sandor, Murray McCourt, Matt Iwanyk with you here on the Hangout. I do actually, Steve's book, we had him on for the Hangout when it was released, Leveling the Ice, Confronting Racism in Hockey. It was a Hangout a lot of people of our listeners enjoy. We got a couple books to give away.
Yep.
Can you sign them?
I will sign them.
We've got signed books too.
Yeah.
And we've got 2 copies of this book. If you haven't picked it up yet, Steve's gracious enough to give us a couple to give away to you, the listeners. Basically, we're going to do a text contest trivia 780-218-9999. Who's Steve's English Premier League team? Text us 780-218-9999. If you want a signed copy of Leveling the Ice, Confronting Racism in Hockey, how's things been since the release in October, I believe it was?
It's been good, actually. Been getting a lot of reaction from hockey fans in, of all places, Minnesota. Talking to a few, I think with everything that's going down in Minnesota right now and social justice being such a big discussion, and obviously with the troops coming into the Twin Cities and what's happened with ICE, all of that, there's a lot of pressure now that's starting to build up on the Minnesota Wild and the sports teams. Like, are you going to make a statement? Are you going to take the knee? Are you going to stand for the anthem? That same discussions. And ironically, George Floyd, Minneapolis. Minneapolis, St. Paul has become, I don't know, the new flashpoint for our discussions, at least in America. I should say our. Yeah, I guess we could say our, because I think there is a wider discussion that is North America wide. Flashpoint about, government, race, government policy toward immigration. All of these things are has come in a place where maybe we wouldn't expect it to have been if you would have said, hey, on the map, where do you think there's going to be these flashpoints? But I think again you say to yourself, as a player in the Minnesota Wild, or as a even though it's not as a Timberwolf, I'm talking about players who are in season right now. But eventually, if you're with the Twins, at what level do we speak out? What level do we speak up about what's happening? Hockey has this very odd relationship that when hockey does tend to get political, it tends to skew very conservative and white. That we tend to think of the hockey players who are outspoken tend to be very outspoken on the far right or the right, like Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, Chris Chelios, and how you feel about the legacies of those players by their support of certain political entities can change. But I think this is a chance, I think, for hockey to show that it does put its money where its mouth is a little bit. But, they talked about the need to change the NHL. The NHL's talked about its need to change. And this is an opportunity, I think, for teams to take a lead, especially Minnesota Wild in this case. of what's happening in the community there. Certainly, these are discussions that I think are pretty great and are pretty grave. I should have said, I didn't mean great. That need to be had. And I wrote in my book that the reason I think that George Floyd, because let's face it, and let's be honest here, the killing of a black person or black people by the police in the United States is not something that is isolated, right? This happens a lot. But George Floyd, I think, not just because it was caught on camera from multiple angles, but I think it was because most of the sports leagues weren't playing at that time. And I think that distraction that a lot of us have. I recommend any of our listeners read not even my work, but the work of an American writer, Howard Bryant. And he talks a lot about that distraction, that sports sells this myth to people of color that, there is equal opportunity. Because look at LeBron James. Look at that. Like, it gives you this myth that because you can be a successful athlete, that there's equality out there or equity, when there's not. It kind of papers over the cracks, and sports tends to lend itself to some things to tell us that the status quo is okay. And sports, again, inherently political. Things like, I don't know, military flyovers of games. A few years ago, teams got in a lot of trouble because they were hiring actors to be when they salute the guy from the military or the woman from the military. There's a lot. The teams were hiring actors to do it, and that was a big scandal. John McCain, before he passed away, said teams have to stop doing this. And this is a guy who was a prisoner of war veteran saying teams need to stop doing all this military stuff at games. It's not right. It's not proper. It sends a message. This is a way that they recruit. When they play in the seventh inning stretches, when they play God Bless America, that's a paid for advertisement by the U.S. military. The U.S. military pays teams to play that. They do. It is not a patriotic gesture. It is a paid for advertisement.
Well, it came out years ago that the U.S. military was paying the NFL for a lot of those things.
Yeah.
So that it wasn't the NFL choosing to do this as a way. It came out late that the military was paying the National Football League.
And that, and people are going to say, "Oh, you've got some ranting leftist on your panel today." But we actually, when I say sports is very political, every time that they do that military flyby, and you say sports isn't political, I look at you like you have a second head, because the second you stand up and cheer for the military flyby, you have made sports very political. Mm-hmm. You are supporting the military-industrial complex every time. And you need to think about that when you make those decisions, when you go to sporting events and when you see those things. And what you cheer for and what you don't cheer for. It means a lot. And so this is been reinforced over and over. That we do these things. And Howard Bryant writes about this a lot. Howard Bryant is great, and I can't speak about his work enough, especially when he talks about the NFL and its very uncomfortable relationship with race and with military and with the status quo of the United States.
Yeah, sorry. No, sport. I agree with you, Steve. Sports has and always will be political, and those conversations do come up, and this is part of I feel weird. Racism isn't political to me. It's just
it's used by
that, and that's the books Confronting Racism in Hockey.
Trust me. I've attended a few of the separatist rallies because I'm covering them, and I tell you, I think in the separatist rallies I've been to, I have seen one person of color in all of them, and that says something. And it's an important discussion to have. And we can't be afraid to have that discussion. Because, and I've said this before, I said this in the previous show I was on, right? When we talked about this book. White people have to stop being afraid to talk about race. It's like we pretend like, ooh, like something goes off in the room when we talk about race. We need to be able to talk about it openly and honestly, like people of color can, and have honest discussions about it. But we kind of go like, oh, someone off in the room, I see no color, I see no color. I'm like, oh God, like how bad does that sound? we need to be able to honestly talk about it. And I think that is the first big step at sort of crossing some of these bridges and crossing some of these barriers and talking about why certain things and certain institutions still remain very, very white or very, very white dominated.
One text. Thanks for talking about some real issues today. So that text comes in. They also have the answer to the trivia question, Arsenal, with a Arsenal picture
That's
for you there.
Oh, it's the old Puma jersey. It's an Alexis Sanchez. Alexis Sanchez special.
They're great Manchester United too. The player. Yeah, right. I will contact the winners for the books, Leveling the Ice.
And I'll sign them right now.
We'll get them signed after, and I'll be in touch, and you can pick them up here at the station. Only a couple minutes left here on the Hangout. This has been a fun day. I've really enjoyed it. We've got you sucked into watching the next soccer game. Your father-in-law is going to be like, "Hey, Murray, you want to watch this game with me?" You'll be like, "Absolutely."
Absolutely. There'll be another word at the end of that. Not.
It'll be like PSG playing someone in 18th place, and you'll be like, "Why is PSG?"
See, and that's actually a fun thing that would be wild to you. So in Paris, there's two teams now in the big league, PSG and Paris FC. They literally are across a street from an alley, basically, from each other. They're two stadiums.
No way.
Yeah,
Tottenham and Arsenal play in the same neighborhood, and they hate each other. They hate each other, and both play like.
that's one of my favorites.
What a sport.
Everton and Liverpool used to be 4 blocks away from each other.
Yeah.
Two massive rivals. Everton's moved to a new stadium that's further
How
away.
would there be stadiums so close?
Well,
That's
and
crazy.
it's like, but imagine if Edmonton had 2 NHL teams.
If you walked in London, you can almost tell where the Arsenal neighborhood ends and Tottenham neighborhood begins.
With the color of
When you're in the
outfits that
Tottenham
everyone wear.
neighborhood, you don't feel right. You feel like a sense of loss and despair. You can't shake it, you know.
Well, Matty, for like 2 months in a row, every Monday on the show, we've been saying, okay, who do we think now are the teams in the NFL? We're down to 4. So I think with a couple minutes left, we should make some Super Bowl predictions.
Where are you going?
Well, I don't think that Stidham can win a playoff game when he hasn't played a regular season game in 2 years. So New England and Seattle for me.
I'll say the Super Bowl final will be Seattle 9, New England 3. I think it's going to be the lowest scoring Super Bowl of all time.
Wasn't it 6-3? That one Super Bowl Pats Rams.
I think it was
in
13.
18?
But I think it was a defensive touchdown. Why do I remember that being like it was a defensive touchdown? It was like, oh, look at Tom Brady, he's so great. It's like, yeah, he didn't do much in this game, but yeah, that was. I can't really not see Seattle, New England.
Seattle and New England over the last 2 months were teams that you and me and Tommy G have keep saying after saying, I'm not quite sure I believe in them yet. And they're here at the end. So
13-3, yeah, it was that Super Bowl. New England's had a 10-point fourth quarter. It was 3-3 going into the fourth quarter that year. I think we're going to get the rematch of that. I think Pats Rams. I think like
Rams?
at some I don't see we're going to have 2 brand new quarterbacks in a Super Bowl. The veteran of Matthew Stafford's going to help lead the LA Rams for redemption. I go back to the Thursday nighter where the Rams got up huge, and then there was some weirdness in that game. The Seahawks had a nice comeback kick return, a punt return, or was it a kickoff return for a touchdown for Seattle? There's that weird 2-point conversion that no one thought was converted, but somehow got converted because it was a lateral pass backwards, but got hit and went fumbled. So they got the 2 points, and then it went to overtime and all this. I think the Rams get redemption for that, and we get a Rams Patriots rematch. With the Patriots doing it once again, they're back on top.
Yeah, and it's like it feels like everything's fallen into place for the Patriots. It's like, as I said, like the whole now Denver running a backup who doesn't play very much, like isn't like a backup where you kind of go, oh, he used to start in the NFL and was decent. This is a total like you have to figure this out in a week.
Used to be with New England, right? He was drafted and played the first couple of years with New England.
There's all sorts of rematches we could have, though. We can have Broncos Seahawks, where the Seahawks destroyed the Broncos a number of years ago in New York. I don't have anything for Broncos Rams, so that one's kind of out of it. Patriots Rams, we have the recent one. Patriots Seahawks didn't run the football in. So there's a couple of options
Patriots
there
and
that could
Rams
be
actually
there.
have a long history, right? Because
Yes.
the first Brady Super Bowl.
Right, you're right. I
First
forgot
Brady
about that
Super
one.
Bowl was the big
Where the-
upset of the Rams.
yes.
Yeah, when it was a huge upset because that was like
The
the
greatest
Rams
show
were
on
huge
turf.
favorites. Yeah,
Greatest show on turf.
the greatest show on turf versus.
I forgot about that one.
If you have 2 minutes, I can tell a greatest show on turf story.
We've got about 60 seconds.
Okay, my mom, who's now is passed on, lived in a seniors home in Brampton, Ontario. She called me one day, telling me that, this very nice gentleman helped me with my groceries. And I'm like, he said, ma'am, you're coming with your groceries. Can I help you? And she started saying like, and she would say, I saw him again. He's the nephew of Edgar who lives down the hall from me. And I'm like, he's a very nice man. He came in, helped around the house. He's helping at the seniors home. And he goes, he plays in the National Football League. And I'm like, who is this person that is like this wonderful fix-it who's helping all the seniors? And she goes, he's visiting Canada. She's visiting, but he plays in St. Louis, and his name is Torrey. I'm like, Torrey Holt? Because that's his name, because that's Edgar's last name. And I'm like, you know Torrey Holt? And he goes, yes. And she goes, Torrey came by the apartment today and said he's going to play for Jacksonville this year. And I'm like, why does my mom have the drop on this sports news? And then he left me autographed football. I said, can you tell me we have a flag football game that we play on Saturdays in High Park? And I'm like, that'd be great if I could throw to him. But it was like she had this friendship with Torrey Holt, which was bizarre.
Such an amazing receiver.
I
love Torrey Holt.
I got it from what my mom said. Wonderfully nice to all the seniors in the seniors home and did lots of things for everyone. So there you go, Torrey.
That makes me happy. A nice Torrey Holt connection. Didn't expect that on the show today. That's it for the EST Hangout presented by Sentinel Storage right here in Edmonton Sports Talk. Murray, thanks for coming in. It's always great seeing you. Steve, it's great having you in as well. Thank you for the books. We'll get them off to a couple of our listeners. Leveling the Ice, Confronting Racism in Hockey. If you want more on that book too, Steve's last appearance in the Hangout was a great, I think it was back in October at some point, where we went into it, and it's nominated for a Hangout of the Year conversation for that one. So get back into that one. This was just the fun for Hangout. Love these type of conversations, especially at the start of the week. We got Lock Shop coming up. We got Oil Stream. We got EST Afternoons. We got the Reed Wilkins Show with J Mill. That's all to come until 6 o'clock right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. On behalf of Steve, Murray, I'm Matt. Thanks for tuning in to Lock Shop with Dusty and us. In just a few minutes, don't go anywhere.
Let's go. There you go, right in front of the camera.
First-time guest, long-time listener, fan of the original draft commissioner.
Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by White Claw Hard Seltzer. The difference is clear. Matt Iwanyk, Tom Zola with here. Joining us today,